Hi, this is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast, Different Thinking for Different Times. Season 3, Episode 10. So, people have asked me about overcoming small minded thinking. And the challenge with the overcoming small minded thinking is most people believe their thoughts. Harvard research did a study and found that for people that think they're self aware, 80 to 85% or 85 to 90% of people are actually not self-aware. And the amazing thing is in the remaining 10 to 15% that thought they were self-aware, many of those were not. They still had room to grow. So that's the thing with our egoic thinking. We decide we're enough and that we can't do more. Now, egoic thinking, or acorn brain thinking, as I call it, small minded, limited thinking, is typically based on the outside in. So we observe the outside world and we determine self-worth, or we determine our value. For example, people who achieve a lot, have many possessions, have written many books. That's not a bad thing. That's certainly not negative unless they tie their self-worth to it. And for those who don't achieve a lot, if they're tying their self-worth to outside validation, they're believing their egoic brain, their acorn brain. It's small-minded thinking. We don't live long here in this existence when you think about how long this earth has been around. The universe has been around for billions of years. It's estimated the sun will last another few billion years, and humans live 80 to 90 or 100 years, and that's extending. But even if we get to 150 years, it's a blink in time. It's a grain of sand in time. And we give so much importance to outer things, especially in Western societies. And we determine our self-worth from there. And then if we have a low self-worth, if we're constantly striving to achieve more on the outside so people can think highly of us, we also believe our thinking when it comes to other things. So we determine from that, because we have so many possessions or we've achieved a certain self-worth in our mind from outer validation, we believe we're more than some people. The key is really to accept everyone as having their own journey. After all, your journey is your business. Everyone else's is none of your business. But it's fact, we don't have to look far to see how many people judge different things. Just what we went through in this year's election cycle, I should say last year's. Each side making each other wrong rather than coming to some conclusion, coming to a negotiation, coming to some ground in the middle. And even today, where people are promising that they would reach out to heal the nation, again, the same kind of rhetoric continues. Our leaders are not modeling infinite, limitless thinking. They're modeling small-minded thinking, and they wonder why the society in general follows. For the last 20 or 25 or 30 years, politicians just point the other side wrong and then get the news camera so that they can retain power. They make the other side wrong. It doesn't matter which side. I laugh at both sides because they're missing the point. To make our lives better, we have to be willing to compromise. That's really all relationships are a negotiation. So small-minded thinking. You're in line and you think the person in front of you is too slow. You're driving and you think the car in front of you is too slow. Or you think they're an idiot or that they don't know how to drive and you're screaming at them or blowing the horn. There's really not much you can do. You don't really educate them. And you can see today in society, each group is trying to educate the other, whether you're on the left or on the right, and convince them that they're wrong and the other side is right. It's wasted energy. Small-minded thinking is not accepting all the differences we have as humans. The reason we have differences is to overcome them. Why else would we have them? If we have them to engage into chaos and conflict, well, that's not going to have a good end. That doesn't lead to what everyone really wants. If you talk to everyone, they want to provide for their families, live happily, have fun on the weekends, have fun taking trips and vacations. I don't think that you'd find anyone in the world that doesn't agree with that, even in the poorest of poor places, because everything's relative. In the poorest of poor places, they can still find people that are poorer. For us that are in Western societies, it'd be good to go spend some time when we're feeling like we don't have enough with the poorest of the poor. With everything within everything in nature is contained its opposite. And if you want to find seek what you to find what you seek within, let me correct that, within everything in nature is contained its opposite. And to find that which you seek and find its opposite. You'll find that you have so many blessings if you went to where the poorest of the poor are. Even if you went to a different neighborhood and hung around with people who didn't have everything you had in the same country. You don't have to go to the poorest countries. And the thing is, there's things that you can do rather than rail against people that you think aren't productive enough, or you think they slipped into the country for free, for example. Take immigration. Certainly for people that come into the country legally, what does it say to them if we allow all kinds of people to come in illegally? It certainly doesn't set a good standard and an example, right? Why did those people even want to come in legally? My parents came here in the early 1900s, and their parents in one case in the late 1800s, and had to go through a natural barrier, the ocean, and stop at Ellis Island. It's not unnatural to ask people to go through border checks and to have a border, even if you call it a fence. Some people rail against the wall, but it's not unnatural thinking to just let people in, and that's only on one border. It doesn't happen everywhere else. And there's many people living along the border with Mexico that have come in legally. They endeavor to do it the right way. Small-minded thinking, though, makes any side wrong, and there does need to be a compromise. And I didn't want to just talk about immigration, but you can look there for small-minded thinking. At work, you can find small-minded thinkers. In the supermarket, you can sit at your desk or wherever you're listening to this podcast and know you have small-minded thoughts sometimes. I have small-minded thoughts sometimes, but I work to overcome them since I had my near-death experience on November 18th, 2002. We have no idea that what we're heading to, what's next. We call it death because it's scary. Then politicians scare us more with all kinds of things about death. Leaders of government have been trying to scare people for generations. From the medieval times even to the Roman times, fear was used to control the masses. We go from this to that. Literally, I went from intensive care into the infinite. It's way beyond anything our acorn brain can even imagine. We think in terms of people burning in hell forever because it's small-minded. We're angry. We want people not only to pay for their mistakes here, but we want them to burn in hell forever. Does that sound like what made this existence, this infinite existence, that we can't even comprehend? We call it the infinite, but if you left on a spaceship, you would go on forever and ever and ever. And when you got to the end, it would continue. There is no end. And physicists are working, as you've heard me say before, if you've listened, to find what created this. And to blow their mind, all you'd have to say is when they try to tell us, we found what created this, the question, well, what created that? Would have to start their inquiry all over again. We cannot imagine where the life force, the creator, the God, the goddess, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Abraham, the Christ, the Muhammad consciousness, we cannot imagine it even. I can tell you there is nothing small-minded about it. I was there. 1 second having a body in intensive care, and the next second, no body, pure consciousness, immense light, immense mercy, infinite grace, infinite mercy, way beyond anything you can even conceive. Anything I could even conceive, my mind was blown away by it when I was back in my body after being asked stay or go. And for all the talk of sin, there was only the good I had done mentioned in my life review. Now that angers a lot of people, again, because they're stuck in small-minded thinking. After all, they want people to pay. But the infinite that created this wants us to learn and grow and accept and love everyone. Not that we love everything that they do, but that's their business. It's none of your business. It's none of mine. My life is my business, and I'm doing as much good as I can, especially since November 18th. 2002. And I can tell you in my life review, I was amazed at how much good I had done. I was amazed at how much good I had done because only the lives I had touched, the good I had done flashed before me. So don't take my word for this. Prove it to yourself that small-minded thinking abounds and that it makes sense to work on overcoming it and work on accepting and finding infinite mercy, infinite forgiveness, infinite grace, infinite space for whatever journey people choose, because the infinite isn't looking at that. That's what is called free will. We have our choice. But what's fascinating is what's etched onto the fabric of time is the good you do. Again, don't take my word for that. Just keep doing good. You'll find out when you leave from this to what's next, when you croak or die or face death, according to all the people that would try to get you fearful. You literally go from this to that, and doing good will flash before you. So prove it to yourself. How do you feel when you do good? And you will learn at some point, because no one escapes this life without passing into what's next. I hope it's not tonight. I hope it's not when you click off of this recording. I hope you have many, many birthdays. If today's your birthday, I wish you many more. And we do not know when it comes. So do good. Prove it to yourself. See what a difference it makes when you just accept others and start to let them have their journey and stop trying to change their mind. You could ask them a few questions. Why is it you think that way? How did you come to that conclusion? Is there another way you could think about it? What else could you think about? What's another way to think about that? Are you open to it? Some people would just tell you no. Okay. We only have to look on Facebook to see all the people trying to change other people's minds, and all they do is get upset, and it steals their joy. And I laugh and think about how ridiculous it is. It's wasted energy. We could be using that energy to do good, to encourage our politicians, for example, in this country, to negotiate and compromise and start leading us by modeling good behavior and not the behavior that they rail against. I mean, people complained about the violence on January 6th, And there's no excuse for any violence. It doesn't matter the issue or the challenge. Yet no one really railed against all the riots and looting and violence in the summer. Were there good reasons for people to be upset? Yes. In Congress, when it reached their door, they were upset. But for small business people and people who were hurt in the communities where there was rioting, no one cared about that. That's fascinating to me. It's small-minded thinking on both sides. Any violence is small-minded thinking. But again, it's for each person to prove that to themselves, that good makes a difference. Imagine a world where everyone was working to leave everything and everyone a little better than they find them. It would make for a fantastic world. Again, you got to prove that to yourself. I'm Steve Lentini. You can reach me at steve@stevelentini.com. You can reach me at steve@stevelentini.com. I'd love to have you come on the show. I'd love to interview you. I'd love to have you challenge me. Remember, I might ask you, does that sound like small-minded thinking? Thanks.